Imagine waking up right at the exact minute your internal clock usually goes off. But before you even open your eyes, your body just registers that something is horribly, horribly wrong.
Right, that immediate primal panic.
Exactly. You are freezing. I mean, the air in your bedroom is biting, it's heavy, and it just feels dead. You try to reach for your, expensive imported linen duvet.
But your fingers scrape against this stiff, rough, totally unfamiliar quilt.
Yes. And you stumble out of bed and your knees hit a hardwood floor that doesn't feel like your floor. It feels warped, just totally rotted.
And you creep down your own hallway into your own kitchen, but there are no modern appliances.
None. There's no hum of the refrigerator, no electricity, just the flickering dim light of a fireplace.
Oh, man.
And sitting around that fire is a family, but it's children wearing drab, authentic pioneer clothing and an older, dead-eyed man claiming to be your husband.
Which is just terrifying.
Yeah.
Because they look almost exactly like your family.
Right. They have the same hair colors, the same general heights, but they are complete strangers.
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario, honestly, because it attacks the very foundation of your reality.
Completely.
You're trapped in an alternate version of your own life, completely stripped of every single modern comfort, and plunged into this brutal era you only thought you understood.
And that terrifying premise is exactly the engine of our deep dive today. We are exploring the narrative of this incredible psychological thriller called Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke.
Such a wild book.
It really is. But we aren't just looking at the plot of a kidnapping here. We are looking at a much larger, much more unsettling theme.
Right, the psychological cost of algorithmic performance.
Exactly. We're going to explore what actually happens when a highly curated, hyper-traditional internet aesthetic like the exact kind of trad wife content flooding our social media feeds right now is violently turned into an inescapable reality.
Because there is a massive chasm between performing an aesthetic online and actually surviving it in real life.
Oh, a huge chasm.
Today, we're looking at the glossy, multi-million-dollar empire of a modern lifestyle influencer, and we're contrasting it with the gritty, horrifying 1800s pioneer simulation she suddenly wakes up in.
I want you, the listener, to really think about this as we go. Think about how much of the lifestyle content you consume online is an illusion.
Yeah, what would it actually feel like if you were forced to survive in the romanticized eras those influencers pretend to live in?
It's a chilling thought, but to really grasp the horror of the nightmare our protagonist, Natalie Heller-Mills, wakes up in, we have to look at the meticulously controlled empire she built first.
We really do.
Because Natalie is basically the apex predator of the influencer ecosystem. I mean, she has 5 million followers on Instagram.
5 million, that's a massive audience.
Massive. And she is currently pregnant with her 6th child. She lives on this sprawling property called Yesteryear Ranch in Idaho.
And she sells a lifestyle that is just intoxicating to her audience.
Totally. We're talking like $120 Brazilian sherry cutting boards and $35 Spanish cotton aprons.
Which is wild.
Right. And she films these incredibly elaborate, serene, natural dinner videos, you know the ones, featuring perfectly timed appearances by her handsome husband, Caleb.
And their beloved family cow, Sassafras.
Yes, good old Sassafras. But this is where the cracks start to show.
What's fascinating here is the absolute paradox of Natalie's brand. She preaches this gospel of simple, traditional, pioneer living.
Right, the whole back to basics thing.
Exactly. The core message to her followers is that grueling domestic work and strict traditional gender roles are the ultimate key to female fulfillment.
But if you pan the camera just a few inches to the left, her entire reality is propped up by immense, hidden modern wealth and a massive corporate support staff.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Wait, so her audience actually believes she does this all by hand?
Apparently so.
I mean, she's supposedly churning butter, making sourdough from scratch, and homeschooling 5 kids while pregnant, all by herself. It just reminds me of a high-budget movie set.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Like, on screen, you see this beautiful, rustic, period piece living room. But what the camera frame deliberately crops out are the massive LED lighting rigs, the craft services tables,
Makeup trailers.
yeah, and the exhausted crew running around in the shadows making the illusion happen.
That is a brilliant analogy because her life is literally a production set. I mean, she employs an absolute fleet of staff.
Right. There's Nanny Louise, right?
Yes, who holds a master's degree in education and essentially raises and homeschools the children. Then there's Nanny Amy, who wrangles the toddlers and handles all the grocery shopping.
So she's not doing the shopping either.
Nope. They also employ seasonal ranch hands to do the actual back-breaking farm labor because her husband Caleb refuses to get his hands dirty.
Wow.
And the linchpin of it all is a full-time 21-year-old producer named Shannon. She actually films, edits, and orchestrates all of this supposedly effortless content.
It's also calculated.
Yeah.
Even the physical house is a carefully constructed lie.
Oh, the house renovations are unbelievable.
Natalie spent $500,000 renovating a late 1800s home specifically to hide brand new high-end dishwashers and microwaves behind rustic wooden panels.
She built the theme park, basically.
Yeah, an expensive one. And her control extends far beyond just hiding a microwave.
Yeah.
She is actively orchestrating a massive cover-up in her personal life.
This is where it gets really dark.
Right. Her supposedly perfect traditional husband, Caleb, has been having an affair with Shannon, their 21-year-old producer.
And the way Natalie handles this is just so incredibly cold.
She doesn't process it as a heartbreaking betrayal of her marriage vows or her traditional values at all.
No, she processes it purely as a public relations hurdle.
Exactly. She treats her husband's infidelity like a corporate liability. She has to manage the scandal perfectly, not because she's heartbroken, but because her very powerful father-in-law, Doug Mills, is launching a presidential campaign.
She's managing the brand, not the marriage.
Exactly. Natalie is the mastermind keeping this entire fragile, hypocritical ecosystem from collapsing under its own weight.
Which is precisely why the plunge into her new reality is so psychologically shattering.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Natalie's entire identity, her wealth, and her sanity are predicated on absolute dictatorial control over her environment and her image.
Right.
So when you remove that control, you don't just scare her, you completely dismantle her sense of self.
Let's talk about the mechanics of how that sense of self gets dismantled. We go back to that freezing morning. The transition from her absolute control to the visceral loss of it is incredibly jarring.
It's a brutal wake-up call.
Literally. Natalie wakes up and the world has fundamentally shifted. She's in a house that mirrors hers, but the floorboards are rotting.
And the fireplace is the only source of light.
Yeah, she's wearing a drab, heavy nightgown she doesn't recognize. And then she meets the fake family.
Oh, the fake family is so creepy.
There are 4 children: Mary, Maeve, Noah, and Abel. They look eerily like her actual children, but they aren't them. And then there is old Caleb.
Right, the older, dead-eyed man who claims to be her husband.
But the detail that really got under my skin is when Natalie tries to flee through the front door. She looks at the wooden door frame and she sees height measurements etched into the wood.
The knocks on the door.
Yeah, they date from 1852 to 1854, charting the growth of these fake children. And then right at her eye level, there's a fresh new notch carved into the wood.
And what does it say?
It reads, Mama, 1855.
Ugh. That notch on the doorframe is a masterful beat of psychological horror. The terror here relies heavily on the scientific concept of the uncanny valley.
Okay, break that down for me, because people throw the term uncanny valley around a lot with AI and robotics, but how does it apply to her waking up in a house?
Well, the uncanny valley was a concept introduced by a robotics professor named Masahiro Mori back in the 1970s. It basically describes the sudden dip in our emotional response when we encounter something that looks almost human, but not quite.
Like it just feels off?
Exactly. Our brains are perfectly fine with things that are clearly artificial, like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
And we are obviously fine with real living humans.
Sure.
But when something is 99% human-like, a highly realistic android or a corpse, our brain throws up massive red flags.
Oh, wow.
Evolutionary psychologists believe this is a primal defense mechanism. Historically, if something looked human but moved weirdly or lacked a soul behind the eyes, it meant disease.
It meant a threat to the tribe.
Exactly. It meant death.
So her brain is essentially screaming disease or threat because these people look like her kids, but they aren't.
Exactly. Everything around Natalie triggers that primal evolutionary alarm. Even the family horse has slightly different white patches than her real horse.
Oh, that's so unsettling.
It's almost right, which makes it infinitely more terrifying than if it were completely alien. And the brilliant irony here is that this is the ultimate subversion of her personal brand.
How so?
Think about it. She spent years commodifying the 1800s, selling a sanitized, filtered, uncanny valley version of pioneer life. to millions of people online.
Right, a totally artificial reality.
Her followers were looking at an artificial reality. And now, some unknown entity is forcing her to actually live inside an artificial reality.
Yeah.
Completely stripping away the modern safety nets she secretly relied on.
If I woke up in this situation, I don't even know how I'd begin to process it. Like, is it a kidnapping? Did I have a stroke? Am I hallucinating?
The confusion must be paralyzing.
Because the text makes it clear she physically feels the cold. Her knees ache from falling on the rough floorboards. It is a deeply visceral experience.
It's completely tangible to her.
Yeah, and you can see her brain scrambling, trying to figure out how to survive without breaking character, debating whether she should play along with the fake husband or try to fight back.
To really understand why Natalie's brain short-circuits like this, why she is so unequipped to handle this sudden loss of control, we have to look back at how she gained that control in the first place.
Oh, definitely.
Her background totally recontextualizes her behavior.
Right, because she doesn't fit the stereotype of the wealthy trust fund kid playing pioneer on a vanity farm.
Not at all.
Natalie grew up in a strict, frugal, religious household in Idaho. She was raised by a single mother. She was essentially a working-class kid who got a full-ride scholarship to Harvard.
And when she arrives at Harvard, she experiences massive culture shock.
Just astronomical shock.
She is placed in a dorm with very wealthy, secular, modern, feminist girls, and specifically her roommate, Rena.
Now, and we want to be clear here, we're just talking about how the source material frames this ideological clash.
Exactly. The book sets up a really stark contrast here. We see Natalie's strict traditional upbringing immediately colliding with the progressive, highly ambitious culture of her classmates.
And what's interesting is how she processes that progressive culture. She watches her classmates engaging in casual hookup culture, drinking heavily, and actively rejecting the concepts of marriage and motherhood as oppressive traps.
That's how her peers see it, yeah.
But to Natalie, their lifestyle doesn't look like liberation. It looks like absolute misery and chaos.
She sees the toll it takes on them.
Right. She sees her roommate, Rena, deeply unhappy, constantly stressed about clawing her way into internships in male-dominated corporate fields and dealing with the emotional fallout of casual relationships.
So Natalie looks at this modern feminist ideal and essentially says, this isn't freedom, this is just a different kind of trap.
Exactly. So instead of opening her mind to their worldview, the environment completely repels her. It pushes her to double down on her traditionalist beliefs.
She decides she wants absolutely no part of the modern world.
None. And that is when she seeks out Caleb.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the dynamic with Caleb reveals the core truth of Natalie's character.
Tell me more about that.
Well, she marries Caleb Mills, who comes from this massive, wealthy American political dynasty. On paper, she has submitted to a powerful patriarch.
Right, the classic trad wife setup.
But she quickly realizes, particularly during a severe bout of postpartum depression with her first child, Clementine, that Caleb is entirely incompetent.
Oh, the jogging incident.
Right. She's suffering from severe postpartum depression. She has a 2-week-old newborn. And Caleb's big solution is to suggest she take the baby out on a jogging trail to get some fresh air.
Unbelievable.
He is completely lost when it comes to actual responsibility or emotional intelligence.
It's the moment she realizes her supposedly strong traditional protector is completely useless. She realizes she has married a man with no ambition, no survival skills, and no spine.
So he just takes the reins.
So she simply takes over. It's like she bought a vintage horse-drawn carriage purely for the aesthetic, so she could sit inside and look like a delicate traditional passenger.
I love this analogy.
But she quickly realized that the horse is dead, and she actually has to be the one secretly pulling the carriage herself while pretending to sit inside it.
That is the perfect analogy for her entire life. She isn't a victim of patriarchy. She weaponizes it.
Yes.
She uses the aesthetic of the submissive, gentle homemaker as a shield, while secretly operating as the ruthless mastermind of the family.
She writes Caleb's resume, doesn't she?
Yes. She writes his resume. She manipulates his powerful father into giving him jobs. She orchestrates their entire public image.
Wow.
Her submission is entirely a calculated performance to gain power, wealth, and influence, all while publicly claiming to reject modernity.
Which makes the physical toll of her current predicament in the fake 1800s so profoundly brutal. The narrative moves from the psychological control she wielded in her past directly into the physical brutalization she suffers when she tries to exert that control in her current nightmare.
Right, because now she can't control the narrative.
Exactly. When she finally realizes she's trapped and decides to resist, the consequences are horrific. She refuses to comply with old Caleb, and he violently slaps her across the face, knocking her unconscious.
It's a shocking moment of physical violence.
It really is. And later, she makes a desperate run for the woods to escape. And the reality of the wilderness bites back in the most literal, violent way possible.
She steps into the trap.
Yes, she steps directly into a rusted steel animal trap.
The injury is catastrophic. The steel teeth sink completely into her ankle. And this is where the true horror of the 1800s simulation sets in.
Because there's no help coming.
Exactly. There are no paramedics. There is no modern hospital to airlift her to.
The medical scene is so grueling to read. Old Caleb carries her back to the cabin, and the fake teenage daughter, Mary, performs 1800s-style medical care.
Oh, the medical care.
Mary literally stitches up Natalie's mangled ankle using a thick, blunt needle and heavy twine.
With no anesthesia.
None. And then Mary applies a crude ointment to the open wound that smells distinctly like bacon grease.
Which is basically a recipe for massive infection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bacon grease on an open wound from a rusty bear trap. Natalie is screaming in agony. She is begging for a doctor. She is begging them to call an ambulance.
It's quite the turnaround.
And reading that, you have to stop and marvel at the irony. She spent years online preaching about the beauty of the olden days. She built a brand rejecting modern medicine and pushing natural remedies.
So why is she suddenly screaming for an ambulance?
Right.
Because the bear trap exposes the staggering hypocrisy of the modern traditionalist movement that she represents.
She just wanted the aesthetic.
Exactly. She wanted the look of making sourdough, the aesthetic of natural living, the beautiful vintage clothing. She did not want the reality of untreated infections, starvation diets, infant mortality, and physical abuse, where women had absolutely no legal recourse.
It's all the terrible parts of history she cropped out.
This nightmare forces her to violently confront the exact lifestyle she sold to millions of women. She commodified an era when women suffered immensely, turning their historical trauma into a profitable Instagram filter.
And now she is trapped in the very suffering she profited from.
Yeah, it's a brutal kind of poetic justice.
And just when you think the physical torture is the peak of the horror, the story pivots. Natalie is limping around the dilapidated chicken coop with the fake little girl, Maeve.
Here's where everything changes.
Natalie trips in the dirt, and she unearths something. She digs it out with her fingers, and it's a small, black, plastic lapel microphone nub.
That small piece of plastic completely shatters the illusion.
Here's where it gets really interesting. She realizes she hasn't magically time traveled. She hasn't been transported to the past by some supernatural portal.
No magic involved.
She is on a set. Her kidnappers are recording her every moment of her terror, her pain, her crying in the night. It is all being captured on camera.
This raises an important question about the commodification of the self. Natalie begins to formulate a chilling theory. She is the non-consensual star of a sadistic reality television show.
And she immediately figures out who the audience is, too.
Right. It's the angry women.
Yep.
The millions of progressive modern women who hate follow her online, who resent her perfect fake life.
What blows my mind is how Natalie's brain works in this exact moment. I mean, she is severely injured. She has a twine-stitched ankle slathered in bacon grease. She is trapped by dangerous captors miles from nowhere.
And what does she think about?
Production value. She literally starts analyzing the camera angles. She wonders about the liability insurance of the producers who let her step into a bear trap.
It's crazy.
She starts thinking about the ratings this footage will pull in and the mechanics of reality TV contracts. She is such a creature of the content machine that she can't even process her own kidnapping without framing it as a media product.
She has completely internalized the logic of the algorithm. Have you ever heard of the panopticon?
The prison concept, right, where the guards can see everyone.
Exactly. It's an architectural concept created by Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. Imagine a circular prison with cells along the outside wall and a single watchtower in the exact center.
Okay, I'm with you.
The guards in the tower can't possibly watch every prisoner all the time, but the prisoners can't see into the tower. So the prisoners have to assume they're always being watched.
Because they never know when the guard is looking.
Right. And because they feel constantly observed, they begin to police their own behavior. They internalize the gaze of the guard.
So they basically become their own wardens.
Precisely. Modern social media operates exactly like a digital panopticon.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Natalie has spent a decade living in the center of it, constantly performing for an invisible audience of millions, monitoring her own behavior, curating her own reality to appease the watchers.
Oh, wow.
The twist of the lapel mic is brilliant because her captors haven't actually changed the fundamental dynamic of her life. They've just made the invisible audience tangible.
So she's still just performing for the camera.
They have constructed a physical panopticon perfectly tailored to her deepest flaws. If an influencer's entire life, their marriage, their children, their home, is a product for public consumption, her captors are asking a terrifying question.
Yes.
Is this twisted reality show just the ultimate logical expansion of that transaction? If you sell your life, don't your buyers eventually demand to see the blood behind the aesthetic?
Wow. It is such a brutal indictment of the whole system. The tragedy and the absolute irony of Natalie Heller Mills is that she built a multi-million-dollar empire by selling a fake, sanitized version of the past.
She really did.
She preyed on the anxieties of modern women, offering them an impossible illusion of peace and simplicity. And in the end, she was swallowed whole by a meticulously crafted replica of her own lie.
It forces us to look at the mechanisms we use to build our own lives online. We might not be churning butter in a $120 apron, but we are all, on some level, curating an aesthetic.
Yeah, we are.
We are cropping out the messy edges.
So to our listener out there, imagine if the algorithm suddenly decided to call your bluff.
That's a terrifying thought.
If the perfectly curated, stress-free, aesthetically pleasing life you project on your Instagram grid suddenly became your actual inescapable reality tomorrow, without your hidden dishwashers, without your Uber Eats, without the modern safety nets you crop out of the frame, how long would you actually survive?
Probably not long.
In an era where everyone is performing for an invisible online audience, at what point do we lose the ability to tell the difference between the stage we've built and the cage we're locked inside?
The lines really do blur.
Think about that stiff, freezing quilt waiting for you in the dark. Would you even know you were trapped until the camera started rolling?